Core Wireless is a Canadian company. It's been going since 2003, and it's one of the few companies that's been going that long that just specialises in machine-to-machine connectivity over cellular networks primarily, but wireless networks is what we do. That's all we do. It's all we've ever done. We don't sell voice phones. We don't sell USB dongles, nothing like that. And we primarily deal in the business-to-business section of that market. So our customers are people who make applications and devices for M2M communications. And we work with them very closely on getting their products to market in the best way possible in the shortest time possible. I think there's two ways of looking at it. One is that, in the B2B type area, M2M always depends on having a viable business case and just making that work. So M2M is all the stuff that actually cuts labour out of processes, or alternatively actually provides enormous amounts of data. And you're talking a lot in this conference about big data. Big data and M2M are very closely paralleled because M2M is the input force for a lot of that big data, and then having that data then allows you to make very good business decisions based upon enormous amounts of data coming through. Take it back some years ago, some colleagues of ours were doing projects with some of the beer companies, and they were getting enormous amounts of data and able to say, if you got this sort of brew in this location, you will get a new market segment that nobody's actually reached before. And that, I think, emanated with some of the things like blonde brews and things like that. So it's a very similar thing in M2M in a consumer level, is that all that amount of data can have enormous impact on what's going on by analysing what's happening. On a more micro level, M2M traditionally and in the business section is about getting data and sensible data from devices that are out in the field so you can make very quick, careful business decisions. Do I need to fill my vending machine tomorrow or not? Is my delivery vehicle, I should say, going the right route, taking detours all the time? Is he stopping by the side of the road and unloading stuff when he shouldn't be? All of those things come up all the time. Are the building air conditioning in here, are they full of Legionnaire's disease, and can we get into that before anybody gets sick? Real day-to-day practical applications are happening all the time, and it's all built around business case. The other part of it is, particularly in countries where they're more determinative, a lot of it is driven by government regulation. So regulations about carbon trading actually has lots of determinants down the track on things like putting solar panels in and then monitoring solar panels with smart meters. In places like China, they will actually make decisions about this is what we're going to do, and everybody's going to have a vehicle tracking device for this segment of the market. So a lot of it is driven by government decisions on a big macro level, but on a micro level, every business is making their own, very economically sound based decisions about what's going on. We've got a pretty good view of what is coming in many respects, and some things are still at the very early stages of the hockey sticks, and other things have been doing it for a number of years. So if you look at the most widely developed applications, they're nearly all to do with GPS tracking in some form or another. Standard delivery vehicle tracking, proof of delivery, all of that sort of stuff has been around in one form or another for 15, 20 years, and it's just becoming more and more normalised, so that nowadays it's very rare that a courier company doesn't have that sort of stuff installed. 5 years ago it was actually 50-50. So that's probably the widest application and the most number of developers that we see in the market doing that sort of stuff. But you take the next logical step from that, and that's, say, things like insurance telematics. We expect insurance telematics, where every car has a vehicle tracking device in it that reports back on the way you drive, the amount of kilometres you drive, and that then affects your insurance premiums. That's another driving factor, and we were talking about those just before, but you talk about business cases. There's a business case. If insurance companies can tweak premiums so that people pay less money for their premiums, the insurance company makes more money, they have less risk, then everybody comes out a winner out of those processes. And then that goes from being a couple of thousand units in a delivery fleet into hundreds of thousands of units. And insurance telematics is something that's on the verge. Similarly, smart metering is being rolled out, say, in Victoria already. It's an experiment that's, it's an experiment. It hasn't really quite got there yet. It will start to roll out in other states around the country, and in other countries it's rolling out in big ways as well. They're very wide developments. Healthcare, I think, is the long-term, very big one. One of our biggest customers is in healthcare, and that's only the very beginning of it, but it's a very long time to get to market with those sorts of products. Really daft, but actually the really simple thing is just have a business case. When M2M fails, it's because people don't have a solid business case, don't really know what they're doing, do it because they think it's something that sounds like a good idea at the time and haven't followed it through. So the ones that fail are the ones where people don't finish the projects off properly and don't actually follow through the full implications of what goes on. And sometimes you think there's a business case, but there just isn't one. We've seen some things where, for example, test devices have been put into units to test whether they worked or not, and they've discovered that the reporting was so bad that they just wanted to hush it up and put it in the corner. You know, there are things like that happen. So for somebody wanting to get into it, you know, figure out what it is you want to solve, what's the problem you want to solve, what's the best way of doing it, and then go to people who've got experience in the area. And we have, one of the services we do is to help people match up with application developers and solution providers, because ultimately, when you boil down to it, 80% of M2M solutions are the same thing. Collect data, bring it into a database, do reports on it, or send switches off. Some of them are transactional, like an FPOS machine, but 90% of them are just collect data and make decisions. So therefore, the expertise is about which data to collect, how often to collect it, how you set it all up, how you integrate it with the systems, and then what decisions you make at the other end. So you match people up with the people who've got that expertise. And that's really the way, is talk to people who understand the expertise of your industry and what you can do about it. Well, really, it's like I was saying before, the only real risk is in not doing it thoroughly and properly in the first place. Like any project, if you start off and you don't finish the project off, then you don't reap the benefits. Or if you don't, you can walk into it without understanding what you think the benefits will be. That's nearly always, that's the number one fault with M2M failures. The number two one is reinventing wheels, or inventing things that haven't even, aren't technically possible, or you haven't thought through. We had a sales guy once who spent his commission just about in advance because he was going to put so many thousands of these boxes in supermarkets that were going to take plastic bags from supermarket people. They produce a voucher, and you would spend the voucher in the supermarket if you recycled all your bags. Problem was, business case didn't stack up. Nobody ever built the device. So, just went nowhere. Everybody wasted a whole lot of air on that. And they're the sorts of things that can give that sort of new technology, in any sense, a bad name. But the reality is that well-planned products with reputable people involved nearly always deliver what they're going to deliver, providing everybody's on the same page from the beginning. Actually, it's really interesting because this doesn't even vary that much around the world. As an example, I went to China a few years ago to China Telecom's M2M demonstration centre, and could knock me down with a feather because honestly they had a Barbie Malibu house there, is what I would call it. This pretend display home that was definitely not very Chinese looking. It should have been on Malibu Beach. It was enormous. I couldn't have afforded it if it was a real house. There were people in there, there were smart TVs, there was smart power, there were solar panels, there was everything turned on and off. Now that's all going to happen over a period of time. The question is how you get there. And some of the enablers for things like that are actually things like the NBN, which is not a technology that we necessarily sell because it's a wired technology, but that's certainly ubiquitous connectivity and the cost of data per megabyte going down to very, very low rates, because over a wireless network there's always going to be a premium over a fixed network. So the NBN, 4G over wireless as well will also open up enormous areas as the cost of the devices again comes down. It's very much a cost-driven exercise, because if you look at it in this sense, it's how cheaply and quickly you can get the data in, and the more data you can get, the more you can do with it. 99% of the data is actually dross, but you've got to be able to pick the diamonds out of the rough. Problem is, if you don't get all the dross, you can't pick the diamonds, and so you have to be able to do that in a cost-effective fashion. So the faster speeds you can have, the better wireless technology, the better fixed technology, the more data you can get in, the better decisions you can make, and that will transform the way we all live over a period of time. You will literally, you'll be on your way home, you'll turn the air conditioner on, you'll set the things to cook, all of that sort of stuff that you've seen a million times before in vignettes and demos and everything. That's not very far away from reality. In fact, you can do it today. It's just not necessarily cost effective. What you want to do is make it ubiquitous, cheap, easy, built into your house from the ground up. So for us, Connect is interesting, and in fact our whole industry is quite difficult to find events that suit M2M. Because there is no specific M2M event, and that wouldn't necessarily attract the people that we want to meet. The people we want to meet are people with ideas, with development projects, with needs, and we want to try and match all those people up with people who we know who can do stuff, and new people coming in on the ground floor up. Because that's very much part of our role, is to nurture those guys who have got an idea, got an application, starting to build it, got a channel to market, thinking about how they do it. And so for us, Connect is about reaching as many of those people as we can, because people who are going to come to Connect, we hope, are interested in connectivity, which is what we sell, and they're interested in innovation and all sorts of different technology. And so there's enormous crossover between those things. And it's trying to find an event that actually matches best with that sort of profile. We think that Connect is going to do that for us. Time will tell.